Let's take a live look at New Orleans. That is where the FBI about to give an update on the New Year's Day attack that occurred on Bourbon Street that killed so many people and injured so many others, striking at the very heart of New Orleans that we so love. Let's listen to the FBI press conference right now.
The last few days have been both tragic and emotional. Families have been affected in ways that will continue to haunt them now and into the future. And I believe only the power of prayer and the faith in God can pull them and us through this time. You know, everyday Americans and one foreign citizens' lives have been shattered and lost. Everyday Americans like Kareem Badawi, 18 years old from Baton Rouge, who was a freshman at Alabama, majoring in mechanical engineering, played football at Episcopal School last year, and whose friend Travis said it was never about Kareem, it was always about others, and that's what made him unique. Like Tiger Besh, 27, from Lafayette, who played football at Princeton, worked for Seaport Global in the capital markets, and I quote his brother Jack, who said, "I can't wait to show you the big things I will do in this world, to tell my kids about you and the man you shaped me to be." And his mom, Virginia, who says that evil will not prevail. Like Drew Dolphin, 28, from Montgomery, Alabama, a graduate of Auburn University in 2023, was with his younger brother Matthew during the attack, whose family has described him as having lit up every room he entered and how his smile was infectious. Like Nakira Dodo, 18, of Gulfport, Mississippi, who's going to begin nursing school this month, whose mom, Melissa, begged her not to go out on Bourbon Street that night, who has been quoted as one of the most amazing persons who loved everyone and a light to be around, said Zion Parsons, who was with her during the attack. Like Billy DeMaio, 25, from New Jersey, a star student and lacrosse player who worked for Audacity in New York as an account executive, whose family and friends have described him as having an unwavering work ethic and positive attitude and kindness. Like Hubbard Guthrow, 21, of Gretna, who graduated from Shaw High School in 2021, an incredible athlete with a passion for baseball since before he could walk, it was said. His family said he had a sense of humor that was infectious, and he brightened up the room that he walked into. Like Reggie Hunter, 37, of Prairieville, who leaves behind two sons, Landon, 11, and Christian, 18 months old, whose cousin Travis said to know Reggie was to love him, who always was in a good mood. Like Terrence Kennedy, who was one of 9 siblings, who has been said has always had a way of being comical and been loving and kind. And his sister Jacqueline said. Like Nicole Perez, 27, of Metairie, who was a mother of a 4-year-old, Malio, and is described by our Uncle Raul as loving and caring, a person very dedicated to her job and to her son. Like Ed Pettifer, of London, England, who worked as a director at an executive search firm, who had relations to the royal family. His family described him as a wonderful son, brother, grandson, nephew, and friend. You know, and it's tragically ironic that his father has, for over 20 years in the service of the British military, fought terrorism and terrorists on their soil, so we don't have to fight them on ours. I want to thank him for his service to the free world, and I'm deeply sorry, as all the other families, for their loss. Like Latasha Polk of New Orleans, a mother of a 14-year-old, a certified nursing assistant, whose family believes that Latasha would have wanted the city to turn out in celebration, but tinged with grief, but not in fear. Like Brandon Taylor, 43, who leaves behind a fiancée, Heather, who was with him during this nightmare, but who has described him as unique. Matthew Tenadero of Slidell, a fiber optics and video professional at the Superdome and the Smoothie King Center. His mom says we will miss everything about him, his beautiful face, his laugh, and how she loves him. And then finally, like Elliot Wilkerson, 40 of Slidell, who had 4 siblings, and whose brother said if you didn't have a shirt on your back, he would try to find one to put on you. No matter what, he was always looking to care for others. You know, each of these victims has family and friends who have to live with the tragedy and the nightmare of these events. Over the last 48 hours, we have all been focused on addressing the needs of each of these victims' families and to ensure that they are properly honored. We began on January the 2nd by ordering all the flags in the state at half-staff from sunrise to sunset. I have personally called into each of the victims' families to ensure that they are receiving the support and the answers to any questions that may have remained unanswered. I issued an executive order declaring a period of mourning for each of these victims on each of the following days under which flags of all the state buildings, schools, and universities will be at half-staff. I requested, and Dr. Kate Brumley, our superintendent of education, has called for a moment of silence in all of our public schools beginning on Monday at 9 a.m. So on Monday, January 6th, will be in remembrance of Kareem Badawi. On Tuesday, January 7th, will be in remembrance of Tiger Besh. On Wednesday, January 8th, will be in remembrance of Drew Dauphin. On Thursday, January 9th, in remembrance of Nakira Dado. On Friday, January 10th, in remembrance of Billy DeMaio. Then again on Monday, January 13th, Hubert Gothrow. On January 14th, Reggie Hunter. On January 15th, Nicole Perez. On January 16th, Terry Kennedy. On January 17th, Matthew Tenadero. Then again, starting the following week, on Monday, January 20th, Edward Pettifer. January 21st, Latasha Polk. January 22nd, Brandon Taylor. And then hopefully concluding on January 23rd in remembrance of Elliot Wilkerson. We have been working side by side with the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office Crime Reparations Unit, the New Orleans Police Department's Victim Witness Unit, the FBI Special Victims Unit, the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office Victims and Witness Unit, to ensure that these victims get the answers and the support that they need. I also called on a time of prayer from Thursday and culminating today, specifically asking pastors and clergy and parishioners here in Louisiana and across the nation to unite in the prayer of victims and their families. We have been specifically tasked in assisting families with expediting the transportation of the deceased family members home. Each citizen of Louisiana's body was offered a Louisiana State Police escort to the funeral home of their parish. Each of our out-of-state victims was either escorted to the state line or to the airport. We are working again with the Crime Victims Reparation Board to ensure that the support they are entitled to is expedited. And the FBI will discuss more details of what they're doing in coordination to assist us with these victims. And I'll tell you what I've told each one of those families. I don't think there's a person up here that wouldn't love to return them to their families. And so we will continue to ensure that their tragic loss is not forgotten. And while we can do nothing to undo what has happened, we are committed to doing everything within our power to honor these victims and support their families and friends. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today with the FBI and our partners. Today, in the interest of transparency, we're going to give you the latest update on the FBI's investigation into the Bourbon Street attack on New Year's Day. First and foremost, as the governor has already done, I know I speak for the FBI and all of the first responders involved in this when I say we do this for the victims and their families, even though we know that nothing we do will take away their pain and grief. What we can and are doing is investigating every detail of this attack to find answers. We are leaving no stone unturned. Before I turn it over to FBI New Orleans SAC Lionel Murthel, I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall global and national counterterrorism threat, as I think it's important to understand those threats as it relates to what went on New Year's Day here in New Orleans. Make no mistake, protecting the American people from terrorism remains the FBI's #1 priority. The threats from international terrorism, domestic terrorism, and state-sponsored terrorism are complex and persistent. And notably, they are all simultaneously elevated. You might have heard the director speak numerous times about him seeing all the red lights flashing right now. We continually face threats from foreign terrorist organizations, violent extremists across the ideological spectrum, and criminal actors that aim to bring violence and harm to the United States. During these past few years, lone actors, or small cells of individuals who typically radicalize to violence online and who primarily use easily accessible weapons, have posed the greatest terrorism threat to our homeland. Additionally, for the past several years, the FBI has provided intelligence to our law enforcement partners highlighting that ISIS calls for vehicle ramming attacks. This is a tactic that has been used for many years to conduct deadly attacks on U.S. soil and in other countries. Lone actors, as you all I'm sure are aware, present a particular challenge to law enforcement intelligence because they are difficult to identify, investigate, and disrupt, especially when their radicalization and communication with other like-minded individuals happens online, as is believed to be the case with the New Orleans attacker, Shamsuddin Jabbar. Over the last year, we saw multiple plots in the U.S. that we were able to disrupt along with our state, local, and federal law enforcement partners. We simply cannot do it alone. Those include plots in September and October in Oklahoma City and New York City, respectively. The FBI continues to work tirelessly to combat the threat of terrorism, and that includes constantly working with and communicating with our state, local, and federal partners, whether that is sharing intelligence and information or day-to-day coordination of investigation. And in New Orleans, that is exactly what the FBI and our partners have done since day one. As it relates to this investigation, all investigative details and evidence that we have now still support that Jabbar acted alone here in New Orleans. We have not seen any indications of an accomplice in the United States, but we are still looking into potential associates in the U.S. and outside of our borders. The case is still very early on. As is with the case with any complex terrorism investigation, as we uncover new leads, receive tips from the public, examine electronic devices, and interview witnesses, the information as we know it evolves into a clearer picture and provides more answers. We have a clearer picture today than we did even 2 days ago. We are much further along than we were previously. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the public for your help so far. You have provided tips that have greatly enhanced this investigation. I don't think the majority of you all in the public know just how critical your information has been for the FBI in high-profile investigations like this one. Your tips and information have been instrumental in the most significant terrorism investigations that have occurred in the last 20 years. So thank you on behalf of the FBI. The FBI continues to surge resources from across the country to assist the New Orleans field office. In addition to FBI special agents and personnel based here in New Orleans, more than 200 additional personnel have been brought in to assist in this investigation in order to process evidence, support victims, and investigate leads and tips. Personnel support includes, as I stated a few days ago, special agent victim specialists, evidence technicians, specially trained crisis management personnel, and intelligence analysts. Additionally, the entire counterterrorism division at headquarters, along with other headquarters divisions, and the FBI's critical incident response group, including our hostage rescue team, continue to work around the clock supporting New Orleans and the other field offices involved in this investigation. We are not done investigating. In fact, our work has only begun. The FBI will continue to dig in and investigate to learn all that we can about this despicable attack on behalf of the victims and for their loved ones. Now, I'd like to turn it over to SAC Lionel Murthel, who's going to go into more specifics of the investigation. Lionel.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Lionel Murthel. I'm the special agent in charge of FBI New Orleans. I want to thank you and hundreds of other FBI personnel and our partners with our local, state, and federal agencies who've been working tirelessly beside us. FBI New Orleans deeply mourns the loss of those who tragically lost their lives and extend our heartfelt prayers to those who were injured, and offer our unwavering support to those who endured the traumatic experience of witnessing such a devastating act of terror. Today we want to focus on filling in some of the gaps and giving you a greater understanding of the planning that went into this horrible attack by Shamsuddin Jabbar. We are also sharing videos showing Jabbar placing the IEDs on Bourbon Street and videos he took as he plotted this hideous attack. Thanks to information provided by you, the public, this investigation is crossing state and international borders as our agents follow leads in Houston, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Tampa, Florida, and internationally. FBI Houston has recovered evidence at his home there, and the work now shifts to our specialists at the FBI laboratories. Interviews are being conducted with hundreds who have been identified as knowing key pieces of this complex, evolving case. We have also tracked that Jabbar traveled to Cairo, Egypt from June 22nd until July 3rd of 2023. A few days later, he flew to Ontario, Canada on July 10th and returned to the U.S. on July 13th on 2023. Our agents are getting answers as to where he went, who he met with, and how those trips may or may not tie into his actions here in our city in New Orleans. We've also discovered that Jabbar made at least 2 trips to New Orleans in the months prior to the attacks. One in October and the other a month later in November of 2024. From what we now know, Jabbar stayed at a rental home in New Orleans beginning October 30th, 2024. He was in town at least 2 days. During that time, Jabbar, using Meta glasses, recorded a video as he rode through the French Quarter on a bicycle. This video shows Jabbar during that trip in October with his Meta glasses. As we continue to learn more about that trip, we ask anyone who may have seen or interacted with him to contact us. Now, for more information, Meta glasses appear to look like regular glasses, but they allow a user to record videos and photos hand-free. They also allow the user to potentially live stream through their video. Jabbar was wearing a pair of Meta glasses when he conducted the attack on Bourbon Street, but he did not activate the glasses to live stream his actions that day. Thanks to information that is coming in from the public, we now know Jabbar was here in New Orleans also on November 10th. But we are still piecing together the details of that trip. Moving closer to the day of the attacks, Jabbar is seen on December 31st at one of multiple gun stores he visited in Texas, leading up to the attack. As we go through the timeline, times we provide are approximate. Jabbar then stopped at a business in Texas where he purchased one of the ice chests he would later use to hide the IEDs. Jabbar is estimated to have entered Louisiana on December 31st, 2024 at approximately 2:30 p.m. He rented a vehicle that was seen again in Gonzales, Louisiana around 9 p.m. on December 31st. By 10 p.m., home camera footage shows Jabbar unloading the white pickup truck in New Orleans outside of the Mandeville Street rental home in the St. Roch neighborhood of New Orleans. Just under 3 hours later, at 12:41 a.m. on New Year's morning, Jabbar parked the truck and walked to Royal and Governor Nichols Street. Jabbar placed the first IED in the cooler at Bourbon and St. Peter Street at 1:53 a.m. Someone on Bourbon Street, who we have no reason to believe was involved, dragged the cooler a block to Bourbon and Orleans, where our teams found it after the attack. Jabbar placed the second IED in a bucket-type cooler at 2:20 a.m. on Bourbon and Toulouse Streets. In the videos, you see Jabbar wearing the long brown coat we showed you in a photo released earlier. That coat was recovered in the rented F-150. At 3:15 a.m., Jabbar used his pickup truck as a lethal weapon before crashing into the construction equipment and was stopped by the brave men and women of NOPD. Shortly after 5 a.m., a fire was reported at the rental home in the Mandeville Street location in New Orleans. And the New Orleans Fire Department found explosive devices on scene after entering the home. As we released yesterday, we strongly believe Jabbar was solely responsible for the fire on the Mandeville Street in New Orleans. We determined that he set the fire before heading to Bourbon Street, based on the ATF's investigation. I'd like to bring up Special Agent in charge of the ATF Field Division, Joshua Jackson, to address the details of their investigation and to explain the origin of the IEDs and the materials Jabbar used in them. SAG Jackson.
Thank you. Good morning. As stated, my name is Joshua Jackson. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the New Orleans Field Division, and I want to share with the media some updates regarding the origin and cause of the fire at the Mandeville Street address in New Orleans. We'll update you on information we developed with the firearms that were recovered from the scene, as well as discuss the explosives material that was recovered in Houston and here in New Orleans at the Mandeville Street address. And I'll kind of close out with some comments about our victim witness coordinators. As to the fire, it was determined by the investigators that Jabbar drove from Houston to New Orleans by himself. Throughout his entire time at that rental location in New Orleans, he was the only one seen coming and going from that location. He left that location at 12:15 a.m. the day of the attack, and that's when he set the fire. We know this because at 12:17, the Nest thermostat converted over from heat to cool. Through the whole time and during his stay, the weather had been cold, and the heat was running inside that residence. It changed roughly 2 minutes after he left because the thermostat indicated that the temperature was rising inside the residence, and it tried to keep up with the fire that was growing inside. Let me explain what happened with the fire. He used an open flame in the linen closet area next to the washer and dryer in a closed-off hallway centered into the residence. This hallway leads into different rooms of the house: bedrooms, the front room, the kitchen. Using this open flame in the linen area, this caused the fire to grow. He also set a half gallon of accelerant, gasoline, in a plastic gasoline container in that hallway. He also poured accelerant in different rooms throughout the house. We believe he did this, and his hope was to burn the entire house down and hide evidence of his crimes. As the fire grew in this closed-off area, it eventually ran out of oxygen and fuel, and it smothered itself before it spread to the accelerants that were placed in the other rooms. That's why the house did not burn down. At 5:18, neighbors smelled smoke in the air, and they're the ones who contacted 911, and that's when the New Orleans Fire Department showed up at this residence and put out the smoldering fire that was there, and that's when they observed the materials inside the house and contacted FBI and ATF, and we secured that location. As far as the firearms that have been recovered in this investigation, it was a semi-automatic pistol that was used by Jabbar, and it's a semi-automatic rifle. The pistol was a 9mm and the rifle was a .308 caliber. Conducting ATF urgent traces, we determined we did make contact with the individual who completed a private sale of the rifle on November 19th, 2024 in Arlington, Texas. This individual, based on our investigation, does not know Jabbar. This was a chance encounter in having this private sale transaction in Texas. There's no way this individual knew that Jabbar was radicalized or had any sort of awareness that this attack was imminent. I also want to preference that private sale transactions like this in Texas are illegal. Additional firearms that were recovered from the scene, and I'm going to call them privately made silencers, and I say that we're calling that because our Firearms Ammunition Technology Division, they still need to make a determination on these devices to ensure that they actually reduce the sound of a firearm to a degree that it can be technically classified as a silencer. But for the ease of public consumption, for you all to understand what was recovered was a privately made silencer on the rifle that Jabbar was using in an attempt to muffle the sound of that rifle as he fired it. We also recovered a privately made silencer inside the Mandeville Street address, along with the explosives material. Now, there's been reports in the media about the explosive material that was recovered. That is something that is only found overseas. I want to provide more information. The explosive material recovered at the Mandeville Street address was field tested by a chemical identifier by bomb techs with ATF and FBI. This is a field test. Tested as R-salt. R-salt is very similar in look, texture, and chemical makeup as RDX, which is all readily common and available right here in the United States. These same field tests were done in Houston at Jabbar's residence, and that tested as true RDX. The FBI lab will conduct additional tests of this material, which we believe will turn out to be commonly found explosives right here in the United States. Now, what is different about this device that is somewhat unique, and it goes more to the inexperience of Jabbar. Our salt and RDX, typically you need a detonator to set it off. He did not have access to a detonator, so he used an electric match in its place to try to set off the explosive material. That is the only thing that's unique about the IEDs. IEDs themselves, how they were designed, functioned, something that our bomb techs with ATF and FBI have seen. It's not novel. What was different is he didn't use the correct device to set it off, and that is just indicative of his inexperience and lack of understanding how that material might be set off. Last comments are very important. I know that victims and family, that is the focus. That's why we're doing this job. That's why we're going, spending hours and surging resources. ATF has victim witness coordinators that are working hand in hand with all the victim resource specialists, and they're going to remain on the ground, engaged throughout services as we continue to engage and connect with the victims and the families. So our thoughts and prayers remain with them. Our focus and our energy remain with them in the city of New Orleans. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to SAC Myrtle.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.